10:08 a.m. May 7th. I don't know what they're talking about, but no, these guys definitely conspired a terrorist agenda, a global terrorist agenda. A lot of these people got tricked this human programming jazz was real. And they were told that they had found a way to program people and make them follow orders on command. So they actually thought they could use telepathy, throw out commands, and people would follow their orders on command. They didn't. It didn't work. But what they did try to do is what they would try to do is sell an idea of this by abusing people covertly with satellite weapons, neurophysiological weapons. They would use time consumption tactics like destroying cell phones, destroying emails, destroying computers, etc. And then they were also using blackmail to try to sell this lie. But what they did conspire is they conspired to implant people, use telepathy, and try to human program them so they would follow orders on command. And that's a component of their global terrorist agenda. Other components revolved around blackmail and hand tying. They opened up all these gambling rings. They were stealing intellectual property, committing economic espionage, recruiting investors to investments in stolen property, then trying to tie their hands. They would create companies and create a culture around their companies. And I guess what's a part of their culture was illegal sexual things, illegal gambling, financial crimes, and then in their culture, they create this norm within their bubble. But it was really a culture for hand tying and setups. So they maybe use wealthy people, famous people, influential people, claim they worked for a person X, Y, or Z. They create their culture in their little bubble company, and then it was really an environment for hand tying. They'd have illegal gambling going on, they'd have financial crimes going on, hustles, and pretend like it was a culture for their company, and they would create this norm within their companies, but it was really a tactic for hand tying. So that's another piece of their global terrorist agenda. So they had the implantation, the telepathy, the human programming. They'd use the implantation and telepathy for espionage, getting information for hand tying, and then they were trying to learn how to human program people and make people follow orders on command. Then they were also stealing intellectual property, creating these companies around them, and trying to create these bubble cultures within these companies and create this cultural environment and create this environment of crime and make it look okay and acceptable within their community. But it was really a hand tying exercise, and that's another component of their global terrorist agenda, is creating these bubble environments, manufacturing a norm, and then everyone thinks X, Y, and Z is acceptable when it's really not. And then people are a part of the culture and joining in on the culture, but it's really a hand tying exercise and a setup. And then they're also throwing these parties. Some of them were sexual. They had their satellite cameras going. They had implanted people with eye output, is my theory. Then they had the satellite cameras observing these parties, and people were doing sexual acts. People were doing X, Y, and Z. And then those parties were hand tying exercises. They were also witness tampering exercises and herding exercises for implantation. They were trying to get key targets in a small place all at once and planting them. They were trying to get targets in a place all at once, committing illegal crimes, recording them with satellite cameras, and that's another hand tying exercises. So they got multiple components of their global terrorist agenda. The implantation, the human programming is just one component, and then they have so many hand tying exercises, it's scary. A lot of it also revolves around manufacturing a norm within a bubble, creating this environment of crime, and this crime is socially acceptable. And people are like, oh, we're fitting in with rich people, famous people, blah, blah, blah. This is the norm. It's the Illuminati way. It's the famous way. It's the rich way. And then they're getting pulled into this environment, and then they're committing crimes and getting hand tied. So that's a piece of their global terrorist agenda as well. Other parts of their global terrorist agendas involve financial crimes because terrorist agendas, especially globally, need financing. So they got financial crimes hustles, they got illegal gambling, they got blackmail and extortion hustles. They got telecommunications criminals and hackers and implantation to aid them in their financial crimes. If you watch my financial crimes playlist, you'll pick up on it. But yeah, these are all components of their global terrorist agenda. Then they also want to use implantation. They conspired to implant politicians, intelligence, not just get information. They conspired to human program them and make them follow orders on command so that they could then influence policy and influence the globe by controlling politicians, controlling intelligence. So that's another component of their global terrorist agenda. So anyone telling you they didn't have a global terrorist agenda, you got to be crazy. They're lying through their teeth to you and trying to cover it up. And they do these neurosurgeries on people so they forget. So they think people forgot these guys are terrorists. They don't forget. But the fact that they even have these new age neurosurgeries should tell you they're still conspiring their global terrorist agenda and still involved with it. Because why would they want for people to forget unless they just, quieted down and are waiting for people to, quote, lose interest, only to try to carry it out again. But a lot of it revolves around hand tying. Hand tying is the key threat. Yes, the implantation is a big threat. The development, they're also financing more and more tech and furthering the development of this human programming tech. So there may be a point when this human programming tech actually becomes a reality where they could potentially take over consciously directed tasks with a BCI or an implantable device. Don't know if we're there yet, but that carries potential. Just not sure if we're there yet. And that would be a threat to mankind. So they're financing things that threaten mankind, as I've been saying. If they're trying to find ways to take over the human consciousness and create devices that could take over consciously directed tasks, such as me moving my hands, me speaking, etc. It sounds like a thing that threatens mankind, because man is no longer in control of himself. Man has been raped of his free will. That sounds like more than anti-human. So they're financing things that threaten mankind and financing anti-human agendas. So don't fall for these people's bullshit. They're trying to make you forget. They may be doing neurosurgeries to you covertly. You don't even know. They may be drugging you covertly. You don't even know if you have any clue what I'm talking about. That's somehow they operate. They sneak into your home and will drug you. They'll use realtors with a realtor key. They may use law enforcement. They have all sorts of tactics. Maintenance people. Because they bribe maintenance guys, all sorts of jazz. So they could drug you. They may host parties and drug you to make you forget. They have their new age neurosurgeries from a satellite they'll use to try to make you forget. They even have implantables they'll put in your brain to disrupt memory banks and retrieval pathways to try to make you forget. Because if you don't use it, you lose it. Have you ever studied for an exam? New stuff really cold, and then like after 5 years you didn't remember it anymore. That kind of jazz. So be wary. These guys carried out a global terrorist agenda and may still be carrying it out. Look for people trying to create companies and then create these manufactured norms within these companies and creating some bubble culture. It's a part of our culture, they like to say. And they'll create these manufactured norms, but these manufactured norms are really tools for hand tying. So be wary. Praise Jesus.